Hey guys, Sicario Seas again. This is a follow-up to the previous video I made, the revelations of a former Master Mason and Knights Templar. Explained some of my background, and we got into a few points of what led me to believe that we didn't live on a sphere, let alone say the Earth is flat. Even if you said, even if I said I wasn't sure that the Earth was flat, I'm sure that I don't live on a globe. So we'll just clear that up. I don't like to use the label flat Earth, or sometimes it's just, why can't we just say we know we don't live on a globe, and let's try to figure out where we do live. I prefer that. In the previous video I mentioned several things that I studied that led me to believe that we didn't live on a sphere. And in a previous video, I did a whole video just on gravity, the deception. As I said, I was a Master Mason and Knights Templar, and as I moved through the degrees, I realized that the G that's suspended in the E's was gravity. First it's God, then it's geometry, and then I think it's pretty self-evident that it's gravity, because they said it's the foundation upon which the superstructure of Freemasonry is built upon. And so that means, gravity is the linchpin of their lie. Now, stating that, G is central. G, meaning the gravitational constant, or gravity. Gravity is central to a glober. Because with the advent of technology, so many people can do experiments. They can, like I said, you can go to the sea and watch ships go supposedly over the curve of the Earth, and you can pull them back in with the zoom cameras we have now. And everybody's got gyroscopes now. And so basically what's happening is we've chipped away so much of what the globies had to hold on to. And now it's just pretty much gravity is all they have. Gravity is magical, because now any argument you have with them, they just tell you it's gravity. It's gravity. It's gravity. It's gravity. Gravity explains everything. So gravity is central to their cause. Now, if gravity is central to their cause, and gravity is the big lie in Masonry, there is a foundation to gravity as well. So everything has a weakness. So if we look at the history of gravity, you have gravities based upon Newton's law of gravitation. Okay? And then Newton's law of gravitation depends on a gravitational constant. Right? Because he didn't have that yet. It wasn't until 111 years later that we have the Cavendish experiment. Okay? So the Newton law of gravitation depended on a gravitational constant. 111 years later, okay, the gravitational constant is determined by a torsion balance. And if you guys want a good laugh, if a globie can look you in the eye and say this is the foundation of our argument, I hope you can see that. That's a picture of a torsion bar. Okay, looks medieval, right? It is medieval, and I'll get into that. This is the foundation, the picture of the foundation of the lie. This is what they hold on to. And if you want an argument from a globie, you think that they'll argue over gravity, just bring up the Cavendish experiment. They will avoid it like it's a hot potato, man. They won't go near it. And they won't even want to talk to you. Okay, so this is what their lie underneath gravity, the foundation of gravity. This is a joke, and we'll get into it. Okay, so the gravitational constant is determined by this torsion bar, which I just showed you. And so Henry Cavendish used this torsion bar to supposedly determine the mass of the entire Earth. Now this is in the 1780s, I think it was 84, I believe. 111 years after Newton wrote the Principia, or published the Principia. Anybody that follows me, 111 is straight out solar worship. 111 refers to a magic square. It's a solar magic square used for solar worship. They divide the square into 36 equal parts. The numbers 1 through 36 are arranged thusly within the magic square, so that all of the rows across and down and diagonal equal 111. And then the numbers added up together, 1 through 36, add up to 666. Straight out solar worship. So basically what happened was you had Newton, as I explained, saw an apple fall and gave a natural law a name. And then he said the name was valid because that apple fell. It was ridiculous. And so they became desperate because what was essential to his law was he needed the gravitational constant, and he couldn't get that. So 111 years later, lo and behold, this guy Cavendish supposedly measures the way of the Earth. Okay, we'll get into it. The Cavendish experiment. Henry Cavendish, okay, he was from a wealthy family, a duke, okay. When he died, one of the richest men in England. He was a loner, wasn't married, did his experiments alone. In fact, a lot of his experiments they didn't even know existed until they found a box of them, and then they published them. They really pumped this guy up, but he never received a degree from it. Now, he went to a university, but he dropped out. He left. He never received a degree. But they give him all kinds of accolades because they have to. They have to pump this guy up because he is the linchpin to life. He's the guy holding up the G. You think the G is important? This guy's propping the G up. Without this guy, you don't have the G, and without the G, you don't have the entire life. Okay? So he had no degree. He was a loner, and he was rich. Okay? They even suspected he might be a little autistic because of his behavior. But who cares? I don't care. Now, this apparatus, this torsion bar right here, okay, now, he made this out of wood, okay, he made it out of wood. Come on, man. He made it out of wood, alright? Wood is porous, it contains water, it's going to expand and contract, it's going to bend, it's going to warp. How can you say this is a scientific experiment with something he literally built this by hand from wood in a shed? Okay? And this is what the foundation of the entire cosmology as we know it today, all the measurements, all the predictions, all the supposed orbits and the star clusters come from a wooden a wooden torsion bar in a shed. It is that stupid, okay? And this is the experiment they don't want you to go to. They want to stop you at gravity. Just the word, they want to stop you at gravity. Most people don't go beyond gravity to this, which is the foundation of gravity, the Cavendish experiment. So he made it out of wood, okay? I got a big problem with that. Everyone should, right? Because let me tell you something. Today, to this very day, they say the number he came up with, his measurement, is within 1% of what the measurement is today. How is that possible? This thing was made out of wood, pieced together by a guy with no degree in a shed. Okay? It's just ridiculous. Because here's some things that we don't hear about. So he built this thing out of wood. Now let's say somehow he got it perfectly level, no imperfections, wasn't tilting, wasn't swelling, wasn't bending, wasn't warping. He got perfectly straight pieces of wood and level. Let's just give him that much, okay? Which I don't believe. How are you going to allow for atmospheric anomalies? Okay, humidity, right? Wouldn't you want to know what the humidity is? Make a note of it because it's going to have an effect on the wood, the expansion. How about the temperatures? What was the temperature on the day that he was doing the experiment and making his measurements? Was it hot? Was it cold? That can expand and contract wood. It can cause it to move, bend. Okay, it's not, wood is not reliable. So you have to have these other these measurements that you can add to the equation, right? You know, the temperature of the day, the humidity that day, so you can account for these things. There's none of that. Okay? Also, pressure systems moving through, high pressure coming through, low pressure coming through. All these things can affect, you know, wood, or just any experiment that you have set up in a shed. You got to remember, it's just this big wood thing with metal torsion bar hanging down and big lead balls hanging down. It's ridiculous, like a circus. Okay, it's a joke. Okay, and supposedly he got a perfect measurement of the gravitational constant, and was able from that dilapidated torsion bar determine the mass of the Earth, which, by the way, came out to 5.79 sextillion metric tons. Give me a break, man. You know, that's the one thing they use, folks, is they use big numbers, so you just don't question it, right? Stars are trillions of miles away. The Earth is 5 trillion, sextillion pounds. So they make it so big and ludicrous that you won't question it. Okay, and then when that's not enough, they come in with pages and pages of equations to explain things that are just laws of nature that are simple. Okay, so anytime they start presenting volumes of things to explain a simple phenomenon that you see with your own eyes, you need to, your red flag should go off. Okay, they're trying to BS you. All right, so we talked about that. Now, the other thing, you know, this was it for him. This was the only precaution he took, is he kept himself away from the experiment, and he drilled. I'm laughing because it's funny. He drilled holes in the side of the shed. And this is literally a shed. It's like a shed where you put your tools and lawnmower. You know, the whole cosmology of the universe as we know it today was in this shed, this wood shed. He drilled holes in the side of the wall, and then he used a telescope to look in the holes of the wall. I can't make this up. The holes of the wall to look at a mirror that would change the reflection of the light depending on how much attraction the lead balls had to each other, and torque the metal. It would turn this mirror, and then it would it's just ridiculousness. Okay, it's just hilarious. He didn't want to get close because, you know, his gravitational pull might have thrown it all off. That's what he's saying. But hey, clue to you, Cavendish, everything in that shed would affect it, because according to you guys, everything's got mass and everything's attracted to everything else, the center point of everything else. So your body not being there, what about the shed? The attraction of the shed, the attraction of the apparatus itself, the attraction of the metal bars that are hanging down. Okay, it's ridiculous. All right, so anyways, moving on. So we got into the weight, 5 sextillion metric tons. It's ridiculous. And the 111 years, we covered that. Now, here's the other thing. This is a scientific experiment that you need to understand this. Gravitational constant is within all of the mathematics and formulas that are used today to determine orbits and how we fly. Okay, space flight is a bunch of crap, but let's say they're doing it, right? So this gravitational constant that was measured in a woodshed on a wood apparatus is in all of the formulas today for all of our cosmology. So do you see how important that number is? Because it's false, it's BS. So if that's BS, then everything that spawned from it is BS. Okay, do we get the gravity here of the constant? The other thing is, no one was there. How can you call this a scientific experiment and base so much upon it? No one was there to verify what he was doing. No one took measurements. No one took notes outside of himself. You can't have an experiment with just yourself. You need to have an observer. You need to have somebody there checking your work that's independent of you, because you may have an agenda. Do you think he might have had an agenda? Because here, I'll throw this at you. What if he just reverse engineered this? What if he needed a certain answer and then built everything around the answer instead of the other way around? How do we know he didn't do that? There was no one there checking his work. Guys, this is the biggest charade I can imagine. I mean, this is when you look. I don't do a lot of fancy videos, okay? What I do is urge you to look up the Cavendish experiment for yourself. Look at the images for yourself, okay? Listen to how the experiment went down for yourself. Because if you do, you'll find out that this is beyond ridiculous. This is fairy tale land here, okay? So I hope you found this interesting, at least. I hope you found some facts that maybe you didn't know before, and I hope that you start to understand that gravity, and not just gravity now, the foundation of gravity itself is the gravitational constant, and we can't let up on these guys. We need to make them face the music, okay? So don't let them deflect you from going after things like the Cavendish experiment. So anyways, look, that's all I got. I just had to get it out because it's been a while, and I appreciate you watching, and we'll dig into this deeper, I promise you. All right, you have a good evening. Bye.